Hello, everybody. Do I sound any better? I'm gonna give you a disclaimer. I'm CoolBZ. This is the Neo Crown Series Week 3, and it's coming out at the start of Week 5. There is a reason, and that is that I attempted to record more of these, and after getting some advice on some audio, I looked into some settings, and I realized that a lot of my settings were really messed up. You actually couldn't hear the microphone. The only reason you could hear the microphone at all was because I had a setup where I was hearing myself back, so you could hear the echo of me and not my actual mic settings, which is just wonderful. I have fixed it though, so it hopefully should be louder. I've also turned the game up, so hopefully it's louder. And after all of that, I mean, I can turn the game down a bit just to make sure. I also don't really want it this loud, but I'll do that. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Or maybe we'll just go one, but anyways, yeah. So, a lot of audio problems, and it's been a bit. So, this is going to be my third time explaining this team, because when I tried to record this video last, all the audio was messed up, and you couldn't hear me at all. So I spent 50 minutes recording 2 best-of-3 sets, where I talked over the whole thing, and I had to delete all the footage and do it again. So I am pretty over-explaining this team to the point where I haven't even brought the old version of it. I brought the new version, but I can explain it one more time. So this is the version of the team I brought specifically to Week 3. I brought the same team to Week 4. If anything, it was good that I didn't make the videos too early, because then I don't spoil my team for everybody I'm playing against. So there is that to at least look forward to. The entire team is really interesting. It centers around Careful Shot, Drum, Heat Up, Bongus, with the intention of essentially using Flow to stop my opponents from getting any positive value from being at the net, and then using Careful Shot to make them go to the net, and then using Heat Up to farm value for them having to stay in and constantly be at the net, and then all of the beasties who are attackers can constantly self-ramp themselves. Masquery is not Rumpus on this team, it's actually Groove with Drum, Stomp, and Introduce. So the goal of that is to use Introduce to bring in Lunaptra, or in this team's version's case, Fetch'em, to net rush to the front and hit really hard. And because we have the Bongus and Platypulse as our supportive beasties on this team, we don't have any way to buff the damage of any of our damage dealers. So we're constantly relying on self-ramp, on big burst, and just overall confidence from our attackers. Although there are a lot of pluses. Because Flow stops us from being blocked, we don't have to worry as much about blocked damage, so we don't have to ramp as hard. And because Neural Net redirects all of our mind attacks, we get to be very greedy with the offensive and defensive investments of 2 of our attackers, being Masquery and Lunaptra. So we get a ton of value out of essentially just keeping everything around at really high stats and being able to shore up those low stats with Platypulse, use drums to heal up everything, and just live forever. Vampire also helps with this, because Lunaptra can constantly Vampire Spike, which will heal it back. Say we do 100 damage, we heal 25, and then the drums heals us 6, we'd get 31 health. Most of the time you're getting around 20 health, whatever, but that's very equivalent to like Hardy Opposer, and this thing does more damage than Hardy Opposer and has better defenses, so it feels really good. Muscle Memory as a serve is also not bad, but it's not the greatest. That being said, I really like the team. The Platypulse has Lay Trap, Stinger, and Smack, with Lay Trap being able to give us an inevitability factor, and Stinger being able to apply Weepy, which can stop our opponents from ramping, one of the big weaknesses that we have as a team, and also Smack, which can go into our Lunaptra, into our Masquery, into our Fetch'em, if we ever find an opportunity to get those in, to go for big hits off of the boost. I don't really use Smack that much though, it changes later, same with the Fetch'em. The Fetch'em eventually gets removed from the team. But you'll see it doesn't really do much in these games. The idea behind it was that I can switch it in as an emergency gotcha at any point, but 118 spirit power without any ramp is pretty low, and the payoff is decently high, but the non-payout, like just thrashing, is just so bad. So this doesn't end up doing much, but I tried, and I think I change it later on. You'll still see Fetch'em does a few things in this game, in these sets, I should say, and it will still come up. That being said, this version of the team still feels incredibly strong. The first 4 beasties felt nearly perfect to me, and I really enjoyed piloting this one. The matches this week are against Eli and Phoenix, so we will probably be watching Eli's set first if I remember what order I saved all the replays in. And yeah, without further ado, we'll get into it. This team just really enjoys playing mid-rangey, long games against people and taking advantage of the fact that they can't do much with their defensive actions to stop us. So you'll see that come up. Oh, wrong one. There we go. So this is game 1 against Eli, and I will say the biggest matchup I was worried about going into this week was specifically drums. Drums with Hydrome or just another Bongus. So the fact that I saw Hydrome and another Bongus kind of sent me into a tizzy. That being said, this is a Stomp Drum Dig Bongus with Welcoming, which is working to essentially ramp up some damage with I think around 20 in the attack invest. And then being able to drum for the whole team and dig to heal itself. When it switches with Welcoming, it can switch into any number of these tanks, including Stomp, Shake Off, Pump Up, Boulder, which ends up being my kryptonite in this set, and Masquery, who has Stomp, Drum, Juggle, Strum, and Drumpus. We also have a Swana Scaldra with Spitball, Rain, and Heat Up, and the Hydrome is very standard for this kind of team, running Stinger, Telekin, Cyclone. No deep breath on this Hydrome. So when it comes to this matchup, the immediate thing I'm realizing is that Hydrome is pretty weak to mind attacks. This team has a couple of exploitable mind attacks, but that Boulder is almost impossible for me to get through. I need to get 4 traps up before it even comes in to even stand a chance of doing good damage to it. This version of the team doesn't have a good mind hit to get through super armor, and all of the body hits don't ramp hard enough before Boulder can pump up and knock me out. So it gets really stressful, and I think this match is very back and forth in terms of the mirror. I think it's super swingy, and whoever sets up first is going to win the games. So you'll see that here. The Stinger's going to come in. The heat up hits. Don't mind the match timer. You can't even see, like, the distance between the things when I do this. Oh, man. That is so embarrassing. We may even want to step forward at some point. But we'll see. So I fire off a careful shot at the first turn, and Eli immediately calls this out. The reason I went for this play, though, is because Lunaptra actually is doing 99 to Hydrome if it walks up there, and I just heated it up. So that was basically a death sentence for the whole game to risk that. But Eli calls it right, and it was a really good play. Drum goes up. Stomp comes out. I switch Platypulse and take 38, so I've already gotten multiple turns wrong, and this is already looking pretty bad. That being said, I can spike pretty cleanly into this slot, and even though Sephiroth here cyclones me, I still get a ton of good damage, and that sweaty is starting to add up. Stomp comes out, but I don't want Platypulse in. Here's Smack getting some value. Lunaptra can now sit at +1 if Eli doesn't give me this point, and an Introduce gets hit onto the Fetch'em. With 71 damage, Yellow Freddy is consistently ramping. And I have a guess here to see where this Stomp is going to go. So I have this Introduce Fetch'em, and I have to guess where this Stomp has ended up. I assume that it's going to go at my Masquery, because it's actually seeing a knockout on my Masquery, if I remember. Yeah, and I can't block because I'm provoked. So I decide to switch Masquery, because I fear that Eli would want to wipe out another Beastie to put this at 0 health, and then this is at 49, and then this is at 74, and take a bunch of bench damage. So I kind of gamble on this, and I switch to Fetch'em, and I get it wrong. That being said, my Lunaptra is coming back later, and I'm not too upset about that. The serve from Bongus isn't doing much damage to me, but you're going to see here, this is where the letdown happens. This Fetch'em is not doing enough. This Burnout is doing 57, and after that it's going to be debuffed, and it's just not, it's not going to do it. Hydrome comes in, heals 70, and can just walk right back in here, and now I have to switch out this Fetch'em, most likely, which is what I do. I get in Platypulse in a good position at the least, as now I can set up the drums again, and then Stinger, which will pressure out any form of lethal damage. And because this Hydrome has to attack, I don't have to switch Platypulse. This is all good stuff. Lunaptra has now come back up. I can get 2 layers of traps, and I'm kind of getting the favor back, but Stomp is gonna, Cyclone's gonna really mess with that. So super well played on that Cyclone. The Stinger is gonna come through, smacks into Lunaptra. I don't get the boost because I smacked in, but I can walk Lunaptra back and fire this careful shot. Because I figured that Eli would be scared and want to sacrifice the Hydrome, or just switch it out, or, you know, like something related to the Hydrome. Eli doesn't do that and wants to sacrifice the Hydrome and switches the Bongus for Masquerade to get some healing. That being said, it's still really good for me because I get the point regardless. Muscle Memory can now go into the Masquerade, which will stop it from ramping up damage. Lunaptra can walk up here, which I feel pretty good about, and that's exactly what's going to happen after this Platypulse comes in. Spitball from Scaldra, of course that's not a Mime Beastie, it just wants the disruption, so that's really good pressure for me. Every time that this Scaldra attacks, I'm in a good position. However, I mess up here. I should have switched my Lunaptra. I wanted to wipe it on the assumption that I would want it back due to how long this game is going to go, but I think this is a mistake because I'm going to lose a lot of tempo. If I had brought in Yellow Freddy, who's yellow and weird, to be able to stomp and then start ramping, I can get out of this really weird point situation and hopefully overpower Eli's tanky beasties. Instead, I leave Lunaptra in, who is still debuffed from the Stinger, and now it's going to wipe, and I can't get any ramping buffs, and Platypulse is angry, so I can't get any traps either, so this is just like a 60 damage spike that isn't getting me anything. Really poor play on my part. The block comes through and does 33 to Bong, it's not even 60. And the dig is going to heal most of that off. And even though the Spitball doesn't do much, it's a little late for me to bring in this Masquerade. Platypulse has sustained a lot of damage. 1 turn earlier and I wouldn't have had that much of a problem, but now I'm kind of in trouble. That being said, a Stomp can come through from Bongus here, and it won't knock me out, and I smack into Fetch him in case I can catch Eli there, but I don't quite. I Stomp with Masquerade to get some more ramp going, but I feel like I have to sack it here due to the fact of how I played this earlier. Stomp comes out from the boulder, hits my Bongus, and I can go for this full power burnout, but this isn't knocking out. It's doing 54, and I think this was a desperation play from me because I'm starting to realize how little damage this Fetch'em is able to do. I block here because I have none of my attackers up, so I shouldn't have wasted the burnout. I could have just gone for a Thrash for some decent chip. Now I don't do enough damage for anything. As you can see, the welcoming from Bongus brought in this Masquerade at 26. The Thrash, my Thrash did 26 or 27. Then the Bongus switches in and heals at 35, and then the drums heal at another 6. So the Masquerade literally just healed off of this hit, which is really bad, and Boulder can now shake off, and I can't get any pressure because of the drums, and Bongus is pretty useless here. And I don't even switch out my attacker, which makes no sense. I really should have. I have very bulky body beasties in the back. I wouldn't have minded. Stomp from Boulder's going to come out. Fortunately, Bongus is really sustaining a bunch of damage and can stay here for that, which is nice. Flow, of course, making it so that Eli has to switch there. Eventually, this is going to break, and that's the idea. Unfortunately, Bongus is starting to sustain way too much damage, and Wally over there is getting a little too ramp happy, and I think that's going to be it for me, because neither of these beasties can live this stomp. Well, okay, I lied. I lied. Lunaptra can live one more, but the healing from the drums manages to push Scaldra just out of range of that spike wiping. Remember that Eli would have to walk back there. Walking back would still be okay. And then I lose this game because I don't have enough value sustained. I get this guess wrong, I believe. Yep. And down goes my Lunaptra, and that's the game. So as you can see, like, really lesson learned is do not let this Boulder stick around for a million turns, but also Shake Off is so bad for me. Stomp Shake Off is actually perfect in terms of getting rid of things like Weepy, and it's honestly really ingenious. So super well played team building wise. And we'll get into game 2. So this time, I switch it up a little bit. I go Bongus Masquerade to guarantee the drums, and I can get this heat up off onto their Bongus, which is really nice. So I careful shot to see if he'll switch out the Bongus, and he does, so I get a free point. This serve is a little bad, but I really don't mind. The careful shot hits here, and that's completely okay. A stomp is going to come through into my Masquery. I just switch in Platypulse, and now I can get up 2 layers of traps, and I can volley into the Stinger here, which is going to be really strong. Now Masquery cannot ramp any more of its damage, and Skuldra isn't doing any damage on this board, so Eli just has to keep throwing hits into this second slot or Platypulse, and neither is really that beneficial. So I continuously Stinger this slot. I actually don't know what this stack is for. I assume it was to like sack a point maybe to stop me from being able to weepy the Skuldra as well, to sack a point and try and fix this situation by switching out. But now I have 4 layers of traps and the beasties are stacked on the wrong side, so this is really, really rough now. Juggler is going to come out, and a stomp is going to hit my Lunaptra, but I can run up here, and I actually survive, so I know that, and because I know that, and now this Masquerade is going to wipe if it walks into this shot, I can take this guaranteed point. So I'm up 2-0 as early as the first couple of turns with 4 layers of traps, and at this point, it's pretty ridiculous. Boulder switches in and can shake itself off, but I'm not worried about Boulder anymore. My Lunaptra can stay in because of the Mind Attack if the shake off comes through, meaning I can just continue to pressure with Spike. 42 damage. You can really see the power of Platypulse pinning here. Just like last turn, Lunaptra is starting to be able to heal because if Eli wants to make any high value plays, Skuldra has to spitball, and I can keep hitting into Skuldra to force that to be the case, or the other beastie, right? And I can keep manipulating the Skuldra to attack me, and the Platypulse isn't taking like any damage from this, so I can just stall infinite amounts of turns. But I even do a little gotcha here, and I switch into Fetch him with the Smack because I know I'm going to survive. Hit this Burnout. 67 damage to the Bongus. Pretty good. And I see this play, and what I see in my mind's eye is that Fetch'em just burned out and needs to switch. Lunaptra is at 5 health. Bongus can stomp to wipe my Lunaptra, which will be great for me because I can get it back later. So I decide if Eli wants to like dig, volley, and then stomp me, that would be completely fine, as the Bongus will wipe on this serve, and then I will be in a commanding position for the rest of the game just due to tempo loss. So I switch the Fetch'em for Platypulse so that I can catch this Spitball if Eli tries to do something greedier than that, and I get it, and this Spike is going to come through with layers of traps up. Masquerade takes it and survives. Excuse me, jeez, but just barely. The drums are going to come through, and I double block the Masquerade so that my Lunaptra can survive. Another Spitball, and it's just too slow. At this point, I just take the game. This Spike is wiping everything, and GG. So you can see a super commanding performance from me in the second game. And I think what happens after this is that I overthink it a little bit. I felt really confident in getting the 4 traps up, so I decide that Platypulse is my best bet, and I bring it out way too early in this third game. Just to keep the line moving, we'll start really fast. So you're going to see what happens in this first turn, see if you can spot it, and then I'll give you a chance. Did you see the mistake? This Platypulse? It's sweaty. This loses me the game. Straight up. And when I realized this, I was like, oh no, I'm such an idiot. I overthought the serve, and from here Eli's going to be able to set up, which, if you remember, I say is the key to winning this matchup. The drums go up, the Bongus starts ramping, and it's already looking a bit bleak for me. I want to set up the drums, so I have to attack with Fetch'em. This does make the Skuldra walk up, which is good for its Weepy timer, but I need an aggressive attacker that's doing more damage than Bongus or Fetch'em in right now. I bring in the Masquerade, and I introduce the Lunaptra, but that's just too slow. I needed to run up to the net. I need this point to reset, and I'm not thinking straight. Stomp goes in. I fortunately catch it with the introduce, which is good, but I need to net rush there. I need something at the net to start doing significant damage. That being said, Masquerade is still doing a really good job. Platypulse is able to come back in, and I lay trap and then Stinger. I'm kind of thinking similarly to game 2, where I hit into this Masquerade and then stopped it from ramping. But the problem is I hit into a shake-off beastie. So all that needs to happen is just volley shake-off. My entire turn's invalidated. 1 layer of traps from that. And I needed more damage from Yellow Freddy there. So that was really poor. I can't get the drums up anymore. I need to push damage with Lunaptra, Boulder pump-ups, and I feel my time has come. The Stomp comes out, and I let Masquerade go. This is still salvageable from here, but it's looking really bad. Stomp hits into me. I go ahead and lay trap because I need the traps up, and I don't net rush, but I really need to start net rushing. Stinger hits the Scaldra, and that's pretty not good. Rain, of course, going to come out. Lunaptra here is going to take the hit, net rush, and I can volley to it, and spike again. Now my Fetch'em's sweaty, though, because my drums have gone down, so that's also bad. Honestly, that should have been a switch into Bongus or something there. And I sack another point here, which I also think is bad. I'm being really hard on myself, but I really didn't think I needed to lose this game. I play this very poorly in a lot of places, and I think it's worth pointing out. Lay Trap comes out, Thrash from Fetch'em. I'm kind of seeing if Scaldra will switch. I want some damage on what comes in. Boulder just runs up to the front with a pump up, and yeah, it's really over for me. Scaldra wipes, but everything in the back is full health, and I just have to keep freeballing. From this point, it's checkmate, because all that needs to happen is this white beastie just gets attacked, or Masquerade gets attacked, or whatever. I keep getting the calls correct, but it doesn't mean anything because I can't make an attack. I can't make a play. So, it is over. Unfortunate. Honestly, if I had played it a little bit different, I think I can win that set, especially with such a commanding game too. But bringing out the Platypulse immediately there did teach me a valuable lesson, which I'm going to take into account for every game after this. And you're going to see it come up repeatedly, so it was maybe worth the lesson, which is that I cannot switch the Platypulse in until it is absolutely necessary. This team really functions at having a perfectly positioned Platypulse, and I just messed it up there. But GG's to Eli. The team is awesome. I never expected a second Bongus in my life, and I knew that the mirror was rough for me. So when I saw it, I knew it was going to be an uphill battle, and the Fetch'em wasn't going to do me any favors. And unfortunately, that is just how it rolls. That being said, really well played from Eli. Multiple super strong plays, knew exactly how to use that boulder to milk out every last piece of value, and also just really leave me completely strapped for resources. No way for me to come back on some of those plays, so super well played, massive respect, and that is my 5th loss in a row at this point in the tournament. So I'm not feeling great going into this match against Phoenix at this point in time, right? And I have this thought process of like, well, if it's not the mirror, I have a better shot. And like, as long as there's not another drums, I thought I was the only person playing drums, hence the team name of Drums CPR. So I'm kind of like, okay, this, like, not many people are playing drums. Super cool of my opponent to also spot that they're really good right now, but, you know, drums won't come up again. And then I get into the match, and it's drums, and I'm just floored. It's another high drum and another set of drums, and at this point, I am completely frazzled. I'm freaking out, and not only that, but Phoenix just came off of upsetting Wave-Wise in the bracket, who was undefeated at the time, so it was a huge moment for Division 2, and I'm sitting here 0-5 going into a matchup I don't like, playing someone who just upset the best player in my bracket. I have never felt like a side character quite as much as going into this match, but I took a deep breath. I remembered that I don't do well when I overthink the matchup and the player and everything else, and I played this match really calmly. And I think that works out for me here. Spoilers, I win. It's been like 2 weeks. But yeah. So round 1 is pretty commanding for Phoenix though, as I sort of learn the matchup and see what's going on. So I've never really seen this team before, obviously. It is homemade and was made by a bunch of Phoenix's friends. So, well, Phoenix and a bunch of advice from friends, my apologies. So it's one of those things where the power of friendship is here to bring me a team I've never seen before in my life. And I'm pretty scared at the outset. This is a sneak attack perfect shot Wildar Mantis, which is a really popular set right now. Very formidable with the new Fortress, healing you a bunch of health. A Stomp Provoke Feint Boulder, which is really good with Decoy at being able to get rid of things like Blocked and Sweaty that would stop the Armantis from doing its thing. Boulder can also feint to set up the perfect shot to basically make it so that nothing can survive said perfect shot. All except for one beastie, of course. And then there is a Hydrome, similar to the last one, running Stinger, Telekin, and then Deep Breath. And I actually think this is a really smart play, because even though you have Drumpus with this Masquery running a very, pretty much the exact same set as Eli's Masquery, I still think that Deep Breath is really good into things like Rally. You can fully heal with Drumpus, healing over 100 health, so you would fully heal, and that could maybe put Rally and just stop it dead in its tracks if you get the right pivot. So, and that is one of the key things about Rally. So I really like this team formation from Phoenix. It's super strong. There isn't even like a single move I change. This Burnout is an excellent serve. Provoke is really good for the team, especially with the Provoke on Boulder, just dual-pronged provoking to keep this Hydrome in position. And then Dodge Roll can happen on the counter serve to switch out immediately. So this team is really scary, and it's the scariest team I've faced in the series so far, in my personal opinion. But this Dodge Roll is going to come out, and it's going to block my Muscle Memory, and what I did is I hit Masquery here, so that if Phoenix wishes to juggle to ramp the Masquery, they would have to spend their turn doing that, and I can score a heat up on this Hydrome for free. Of course, I believe that it's going to be Telekinesis Drum Stinger, but I don't mind just shooting out a Heat Wave to make sure. Keep my opponent honest here, and it does happen that way. But this is fine, as Vampire is going to heal me outside of the range of the next one. But I do the same thing that I did against Eli. I say, hey, guess what? Hydrome is taking 99 net to net. I don't think you want to take that. But I make a mistake here, because this Hydrome is Deep Breath, so it literally could have just been Volley Deep Breath with Drumpus full heal. So the Hydrome is free to walk up here. So this Careful Shot isn't much of a threat, but I still want the drums up, so this is not bad. I still think this was my best play. No damage is made, but Hydrome is walked into an advantageous position, and the Stinger comes out, and I bring my Platypulse in super early. Once again, this is about where it clicks, like, I need to stop doing this. That being said, I can still get value out of the situation. I can Stinger the Hydrome, give it some Weepy, and make it so I can't get ramped on by it anymore. With a block coming out from Lunaptra, I can either now set up traps, or I can Stinger the Masquery to make this situation really, really bad. What I do is I believe with my Lunaptra about to wipe, which I'm surprised it stayed in for. Me once again just letting the Lunaptra wipe, maybe a mistake. Volley, Lay Trap, Spike is going to come out, and it's going to get blocked by Hydrome. Hydrome can now fully heal this, and I lose a Beastie. Fortunately for me, I can just sack this Fetchum, who's so weak it just dies there. But Platypulse is about an 8 wipe now, and this situation's looking really not good. Fortunately, I can Stinger here, and Hydrome is at 3 out of 4 Weepy, so I can wipe it. And this is important because Hydrome will come back with a Sweaty, and there's no chant on Phoenix's team as there's no space for it. So this is really fortunate because now in all future interactions with Hydrome, Hydrome will be sustaining way too much damage. And I'm playing for the long game, but I think I've sacrificed a few resources too many, a little too fast. The Stinger comes out, and I switch in Masquery, who just has to take this. 60 Mind Defense, really not good. The drum goes up, and I have to Careful Shot. Of course, our Mantis comes in, and that's about where I realize, oh no, it's probably over. Phoenix goes for the perfect shot into Bongus to avoid the Fetchum coming in. Of course, I just have to switch Fetchum. There's just no other way for me to stay in this game reasonably. I walk Fetchum up, and I go for this Thrash, and I don't get walled, thankfully. That being said, the feint perfect shot is still enough to win the game on the spot, so I have to sidestep. Sneak attack is going to hit my Bongus, but I can heat up. But the heat up hits the decoy boulder, and this is where I realize it's decoy, and I go, oh no. It's decoy boulder. So now I have a choice. I have to run up with Fetchum, and I have to slam this Burnout. Daredillo can come in though and live, and I was like, no, I'm like one turn away. I can block this Daredillo to survive with Fetchum, so I go for the read, and then I remember it's decoy. I'm not gonna lie, I might be stupid, and I'm also dumb. That was a really silly play to make, and in retrospect, you would never make that play, but you do what you gotta do sometimes. At least I learned, you know, download complete. I know it's decoy. Yep, I planned for this. So sad. That being said, I am on counter serve, which my team is better at in the game too, and I have a lot of information on the matchup. Phoenix actually switches up the lead on counter serve, or on serve, going for Armantis and Boulder. Goes for this sneak attack, and I can heat up, and the decoy comes out again. And this is about where I had a pause between these plays, and I said, stop hitting the decoy. Literally stop hitting the decoy. I need to get used to it, and I need to get used to it now. So I volley, and I go for this spike. And what I realize is that this is about to do 44 to this Armantis. Armantis can only sustain 2 more of these, given 2 more turns of this. And I know that the provoke is probably coming out from this boulder, or the feint, and regardless of what happens, I can switch in Platypulse. So it does seem a little early to bring it in, but I know that I can do this, because I can set up the 4 traps while playing this game, and it's completely fine, because my Platypulse will either wipe, and I get 4 traps up and knock out the Armantis and set Phoenix really far back, or Phoenix stops playing this game of chicken at some point and takes a bunch of damage from switching with the traps. I do hit the boulder here instead of the Armantis, but that's okay, because the boulder is about to sweat out, so I can now put on more pressure this way. Of course I can't block. I just did it for funsies. I'm trying to keep the Platypulse in anyways. I can now knock out the boulder, and that is what I choose to do instead of taking out the Armantis. But it's still good, because 53 to the Hydronom, coming in, and the sneak attack can go out. And what's interesting about this play, and I want to highlight this actually, let me walk this back for a second. Perfect shot was actually knocking out my Platypulse. So I created a really interesting situation, and I saw it in my mind's eye. I love saying that. Where you can volley into Armantis here, and perfect shot to knock out my Platypulse. But this is what I want, right? Because if Platypulse wipes, my whole bench is full health. I just got a point. This has to sneak attack up to the front row, and I can bring in Bongus to survive with flow and just deny the wall. So I'm really happy with this, especially since no drums are up on Phoenix's side. I can win the long game if Platypulse gets knocked out. So I decided to make this play here, where if Phoenix chooses to volley deep breath and then sneak attack to heal the Hydrome and not sustain too much damage, I can just walk Lunaptra up. And that is exactly what I do. So the ball hits Platypulse, and it survives 1 more turn, which is crucial, as I can get 4 layers of traps and threaten another spike. Hydrome, of course, can now take this knockout, and so can Armantis. So Phoenix chooses to fully heal the Hydrome. I think this is the correct play. And then just chooses to knock out my Platypulse. And that's what I want. So this is completely fine. Platypulse will come back on a 4-turn timer. I want it back later anyways. I can get a pin with it later. Here, Armantis walks up, and I can actually go for the spike to do 44 damage, but it's not going to knock out. So I decide to set up the drums to sustain a little more health, and I keep Lunaptra in the back for this turn. This is going to do 13 damage to the Armantis, which is actually going to keep it just out of range of Fortress, which means that the Armantis can't heal much. And now, if the Armantis stays where it is, my Lunaptra, who survives all these hits in the back, right, can actually run up and attack this Armantis. Except I'm lying, because my Lunaptra doesn't survive any of these attacks in the back. That being said, still a strong play. Telekinesis comes out, and I just choose bring in Fetch'em. Fetch'em finally activates Fetch, and I'm Weepy, so it just knocks out the Weepy. This Fetch'em just does nothing in these sets, man, and I feel so bad for bringing it, but it's okay. It survives a hit here, and it's decently mind bulky, which is great for this situation, while I'm waiting for Platypulse to be back up. And here, a really interesting play happens once again. You can see Fetch'em here, because of the flow, is seeing a knockout with burnout on everything except Boulder, because of the traps, the 4 layers of traps. So Boulder can come in and survive at exactly 1 HP with Sweaty, which means it will wipe, and it will be really bad for Phoenix. Or I can get the knockout on this Armantis and go up to 1, and then burn out on serve. Both of these are really bad for Phoenix, so I decide that in the ensuing chaos, I'm going to careful shot to the back, assuming nothing is walking back. and the careful shot comes out, and boom, nothing walks back. Even better for me, Daredillo tried to block the hit, which now means that Daredillo is going to face this burnout, except it has dodge roll. So I think that was hedging the bets a little bit, as the dodge roll is going to stop this from doing a bunch of damage. But fun fact, flow on Bongus makes it so that dodge roll does nothing. Beautiful. Telekinesis comes out and goes after my Fetch'em, and I decide I'm just going to heat up, because Fetch'em survives another one of these, and the Weepy doesn't do anything to it. So I get one last turn of value out of Fetch'em, slam this burnout. 45, it's not bad. Thank you, Fetch'em, for your service. Stinger's going to come out, and I just sack it. Completely fine. Playing for an endgame. Stomp is going to come out from Boulder. This hits into my Lunaptra. And you can see here that I have started to create a really, really bad situation. Daredillo is very low. Masquery cannot switch in. And neither can our Mantis. And Lunaptra can now spike to go after Hydrome, who is going to wipe if I choose to hit it here. So it's either call the Daredillo switch in slot 1, or go after Hydrome, or whatever. What matters is that Hydrome is the only beastie who can really do a bunch of damage to me right now, as long as I keep the pressure up. And my Platypulse has come back up. So I have a really big check going on here, and I know it. So I play to my full advantage, and I just net rush Lunaptra and start ramping with Masquery. I'm gonna make this Hydrome hit me. And what's funny is, I bring in Bongus. I am spending extra time to not bring in this Platypulse, spending as many turns as possible chasing out this Hydrome, and this Daredillo was the only thing that survives Masquery Stomp. So it's GG. And I was really proud of that one. It was really, really fun. And it was about here where I realized that even though I think this team is incredibly strong, specifically for me, there are some things I can take advantage of. So I realize, oh, I gotta believe. And I go straight into game 3 on serve, which is pretty bad for me, but I do the exact same thing and just don't waste my Platypulse this time. So Muscle Memory comes out. It's gonna hit the Boulder, do 23, that's fine. Drums go up, Masquery walks up, again just making choose between Drum and Juggle. Drums go out, and now Masquery is in the front row, and I can stomp this Boulder pretty free. So now our Mantis can do some big damage to me, and I stomp here. I bring in the Platypulse, similar to what I was saying with not wanting to bring it in. I know that, I just realized that's really dumb. But it's okay here because the Perfect Shot can only do 39 to it, and so can the Stomp. Everything was doing identical damage, so I was okay bringing in Platypulse for like a turn or two. It volleys here, I can set up the traps, and I can Stomp freely. The easiest wall of Phoenix's life, right? But the ramp is starting to get a little bit too much. Because look here, now this Mantis is getting knocked out by anything that my Masquery can do, unless I stay in the back with it. What I realize here, ooh, my bad, I dropped my mouse, sorry, that was probably loud, is that Perfect Shot does 98 damage to my Masquery. And I know that Phoenix wants to feint the Platypulse to do a big amount of damage to it. So when this Perfect Shot comes in, I'm going to have it, it's going to aim at Masquery, or it's going to aim at Platypulse, I don't really mind either. And Platypulse is going to survive, but Masquery is going to take 98, so it's going to survive. And I think this is a huge play. The Perfect Shot goes into Masquery, and I just smack straight into Lunaptra. I take 98, which looks really bad, but it's actually perfect, as I can just stomp again and threaten this wall. Both beasties were seeing the knockout on wall there, so it was a 50-50, and I get it right. And now I'm in a commanding lead. I can go for this stomp, hold their stomps, and now I can switch out the Masquery, bring in Fetch'em. Doesn't really matter what came in. I wanted to make sure I got full value out of Fetch'em if Phoenix hit that slot. Doesn't end up hitting that slot, so Lunaptra can just get a free net rush, basically just guaranteeing value. Daredillo does devalue this play a little, but it's completely fine. Bongus can come in, and now something has to walk up here. And I know this, so I go for a big spike. Boulder walks up, and Daredillo can now no longer do like anything in this game. So I've effectively neutralized Daredillo. What's funny is Phoenix doesn't want me to sacrifice this Lunaptra, so they end up going for the Stomp into Bongus, who takes a ton. But I actually switched in Masquery, who would take even more. But I wanted to get the sack with a lower health Beastie. I don't know if Phoenix saw that or not, but it's really well played to keep me from getting that value, because if I did, I think I just get in a commanding lead for the rest of the game. That being said, this is still beneficial for me, because now I have 2 Beasties who can drum. So I can now cleanly drum and then stomp, and this boulder can't block me. Dodge roll can't block me either. So I get some really good damage on the boulder, and I switch in the Fetch 'em just to make Phoenix take this point. And this is fine. I can now safely bring in Bongus to survive another hit, and that's good from Bongus. I can net rush with Fetch 'em and Careful Shot here, and that essentially creates a pin, as Daredillo is so low that Fetch 'em would be able to pick it up there. Masquerade would survive 1, and I took advantage of that and just went for a sideways to try and nab a quick point. And I think this singular point is going to make it so much easier to win in the late game, as my bench is looking a little shot in comparison. But we're both pretty weak, so it seems okay. I go for the Thrash, and Masquerade runs up here. This is a really aggressive play from Phoenix, but I think it works out, because it makes it so that the Masquerade can just double juggle and threaten to kick my Bongus out. I choose to let this happen, where if Hydrome wished to Stinger there, I would be able to nail a heat up on it. If Hydrome wished to Stinger there, I can sacrifice my Bongus and I don't get the heat up. But if Masquerade chooses to try and knock out my Bongus with all the ramp that it wants to do, I can nail a heat up on Hydrome and make this endgame infinitely easier. So after that, there is now a really important thing to note, which is that the Armantis and the Hydrome are both at 1 sweaty, and neither of them like that very much. So I'm in a really good lead. Stinger comes out, and my Masquerade is already back up, so I can take this hit, introducing Lunatra, which can last me 1 more turn here, and that's going to be perfect, because Phoenix doesn't want to hit the Fetch 'em, but has to, and I can bring in this introduced Lunatra, who takes advantage of that fact. Run Lunatra up and spike. And when I said that that second point really mattered, it really does, because it means I can guarantee this endgame. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to serve with Platypulse if I had to play another point, but here I can actually guarantee that I'm really in really good position. Because of that Thrash from Fetch 'em, everything is incredibly low. Nothing can switch into Lunatra Spike except for Armantis, and you already know what's coming. I don't have to tell you. Hydrome runs up and Telekinesis is trying to get as much damage as possible, and Joker hit me, do it, I want you to do it. The Platypulse comes out. Lay Trap is going to connect, and that's just going to make it so that nothing can survive. Hydrome takes 99, nothing else was taking that hit, and that's GG, well played. So after this, I have to say, I just learned how to pilot the team better, I feel like. It was a very similar matchup in both cases, and I think Phoenix's team was scarier. I just learned how to play the team kind of as I practiced, and I'm really, really proud of how I played those last 2 games. So much thinking I had to do. I was a complete mess by the end, just really frazzled, like, oh, and, you know, exploded my brain to get that win, and I'm super happy with how the team performed. My final thoughts on this version of the team, you kind of already heard, because I played this team again, which is that this entire team is amazing except for Fetch 'em. And I realized how much of a strong team I had here, so I just brought it to the next week. This team is so good, and I think that it just really, really, really punishes any sort of passive play, like any at all. Even just like a middle-of-the-road play, this team just doesn't let you. This Joker Platypulse is just an absolute freak and just consistently takes hits, even on defenses it's not supposed to, because it can stay in the back, and then the Lay Trap just continues to cause pressure while Lunatra Spike just does its thing with Vampire, healing me over and over again with the drums, making it so that Lunatra is always a threat, always online. This team is awesome. I really enjoyed brewing this one. At first I thought maybe I wasn't onto anything with the Bongus, but really trying to find a team that takes advantage of a lack of ramp, but still takes advantage of the fact that my opponents have to walk up and can't block me is really huge. That being said, having a Platypulse into Armantis as well as having Flow into Wall was pretty insane, so it could be argued it was a good matchup. I still think that Phoenix had a lot of tools, especially since this Fetch 'em was essentially making me play 4-on-5, but it was incredibly well played to both, and I really want to see that Hydrome, Daredillo, Boulder core again. That was terrifying. I can see how that won against Wavewise. So, yeah, I'm really, really proud of how I played. At this point, at the end of week 3, I ended up going 1-5, and I was like, finally, I'm not last place in the bracket. Except, I looked at the bracket, and it turns out I was still last place. My other opponent, or my competitors who were also 0-4, ended up winning both of their games, so they jumped above me anyway. So at this point, going into week 4, I was still the lowest in the standings, and that felt pretty bad. I worked really hard, so I decided I was going to step away for a bit. I didn't want to play as much Beastieball. I was spending like 40 hours every 2 weeks working on these teams, coming up with all this stuff, so I decided this team is strong enough. I'm going to make some very small changes, remove this Fetch'em, change a move or two, and I'm going to go right back in it. This really works out for me, I think, and we'll see that in the next week. So thanks for bearing with me as I catch up. Hopefully the audio has been a lot better. I hope you enjoyed my talking and this video, and thank you very much, everybody. Have a good one.